Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'm handing it off.
Cool. Thank you, Fib. Can you see my screen? Yeah. Hey, guys. So I'm calling in from Vietnam. Going to be going into Singapore tomorrow. Just was at the Vietnam Founders Village. And yeah, I've been meeting a lot of cool game developers, getting some good feedback on Honeycomb Protocol. Really excited to give this presentation today. We're going to do the first segment is going to be kind of on the Radar Hackathon, setting up your MVP, just some tips on your pitch, as well as like how to structure like the social media side as well. So let's jump right on in. Just some quick background, a bit about myself. So I started developing on Solana in 2021. Originally started Solana University with Dana and Donnie from Foundation. And then the goal of Solana University was really to open up dev faucets all around the world. And you'll see like a lot of the things with Honeycomb Protocol is very similar to this, onboarding Web2 developers, making it as streamlined as possible. That's always been the main focus and core of almost everything. So yeah, Solana University is still ongoing. And after that, kind of worked on Toomey Labs from the beginning of 2022. Worked with around 100 projects in Solana, built around 50 plus MVPs. Actually, that's when I met Fib from one of the projects. So funny story. And then, yeah, after Toomey Labs, we kind of wrapped that down towards the end of 2023. And we were working on this experimental project called Honeycomb Protocol. The idea was, how do we streamline a lot of the developer experience on Solana to make it as easy as possible to build and deploy games. Honeycomb can not only be used for Web3 games, but also it can be used for dApps. So like making, for example, like a gambling site, if you want to have like player profiles, or if you want to have, NFT finance related apps. So we'll jump in. But before we get into Honeycomb Protocol itself, I want to just kind of go over some tips and tricks that I came across from, the past few hackathons. So we placed first in the Sandstorm in gaming, and then third in the recent Colosseum. So these were kind of just like my main tips that I have. This is just my opinion, but I do think these can help you structure like a strong submission to the upcoming Radar Hackathon. So the first one is really focusing on solving a core problem with a sound thesis. What that means is like finding something that your problem should have a solution to a specific demand that is as high upstream as possible. And the reason why the solution you have made to the core problem, the reason why the demand needs to be so important is because the higher upstream it is, the more leeway you have when you have issues downstream. For example, like raising funds, finding your customers, right? These aren't as big of an issue if you hit the demand really high upstream. So just make sure you have a sound thesis for the problem you're solving. The next one is prioritize the key features. Whenever we build out MVPs at Toomey Labs, we always go through and we go and figure out what are the must-haves, right? And versus what could you have or what you don't really need to have, right? And prioritize those must-have features, and that's really your MVP. Then be time conscious, quick iterative cycles. That's a type of iterative cycle because it's limited. Try to build that first layer and then just keep iterating on top of it until you push all the way till the end of the deadline. Then leverage existing tools. This is, I think, really, really important. In 2023, we had like lookup tables that came out, and then now we have blinks and then state compression. So having this in your submission, I think can really help get a lot more eyes on it. So for the pitch itself, there's really three main things that I realized after kind of going through the fundraise process and also doing the pitches for the hackathons. So the three main things was for me was showcasing the vision. Like, why does the problem exist? But really being able to inspire emotion for that problem. So for example, like whatever you're building, without that product, there's going to be a huge impact on mass adoption or a huge impact on Web3 products being, shipped out. And maybe your solution is infrastructure, for example, right? So without your infrastructure, there's no way that we'll be able to accelerate Web3 at the speed that we want. So you need to really be able to like inspire that emotional feeling in the judges, because at the end of the day, it's a gut feeling. Like I have a gut feeling that this product is, is going to have a large impact, right? So inspire emotions. I think that's an important one. And then also have long-term impact and really be able to express that in the vision. Then the next one is the economics. This one I didn't really realize how important it was until more recently. So now the Radar Hackathon is more of a accelerator program, and you get a set valuation after placing, right? So the economics have to be like really sound as well. So identify your market opportunity, determine the business models, revenue streams, and what your competitive advantage is. And then most important, the very last is showcase the MVP within the pitch itself. Another core thing when making your Radar submission is the social media itself. So number one, people always say this on Twitter, which is build in public. So just having consistent updates as you're, shipping code. But then the next big one is like creating a proper submission thread itself. This one, you just want to break down the story, highlight, the key features, add your video in there. Then at the very last part of the thread, tag all the judges and the KOLs and the ecosystem. And then send it out to your friends, have them engage, send it to the different networks, send it to Superteam Canada, Fib and Simon, right? They'll help you blast it on the main socials. So you just want to get as many people to engage with that post, just so that it can show up on the timeline, and then it can kind of cascade, right? And I think this is one of the more important things, as much as I wish it wasn't true, it is almost like a metric to determine how your distribution is going to work, and if your team can do social media distribution. So that was just a high level overview on making a successful Radar submission. Now we're going to jump into Honeycomb Protocol itself and kind of go over first the main features, and then we'll jump into the specific modules within the protocol. So what is Honeycomb? Well, it's an SDK to enable game developers to take advantage of Web3 by providing on-chain game primitives using generalized state compression to dramatically reduce fees and streamline development with a single client. So what does that mean? Well, in Honeycomb Protocol, we have a bunch of on-chain programs, and all of these programs are fully interoperable with each other. So we wanted to, kind of abstract away the Web3 complexities from the developer itself. So we have this single client where it's just a unified developer experience where you just go in, you take a few lines of code from our SDK, and you have a Web3 integration. So then our SDK, the SDK pretty much aggregates thousands of lines of code into those snippets, right? Then that can then just be integrated directly into your app. And then we also have reference implementations so that, the integration is as seamless as possible. The most important part of Honeycomb Protocol itself is that we're one of the first protocols built fully on state compression on mainnet. And this is one of the most key features, I think, because it really allows accessibility. So now with state compression, we're able to reduce on-chain fees for the entire business logic of a game by 500 to 2000x. That means every transaction is compressed, every digital asset is compressed, all of the business logic is now compressed. So what does that mean for a developer and the player? Well, now anyone in the world can access a tier 1 blockchain and build games. One of the things we saw with Ethereum was, how inaccessible it was, right, to the rest of the world outside of major areas. And once, Polygon, Binance Smart Chain, Solana came out, we started to really push that into the rest of the market. Now with state compression, it allows us to bring this even further down by dramatically reducing the fees on a chain that's already, known to have scalability and, significant reduction in fees. So what that does is players now don't have to spend a lot of money to play a game, and developers can pay for all of the fees on chain as well for the game. So just making Honeycomb and Web3 gaming as accessible as possible to the world. So these are just the modules. So on the far left, we have our master program. This is where you start your project, you initiate your player profiles. This is where you interact with our client, and that's the HPL Edge Kit. And we also have this thing called Shadow Signer. So Shadow Signer pretty much means that you're auto-signing all of the transactions so that you don't have to have your player or user click sign every time. We'll get into delegate authority next, but I want to get into this Nectar utilities. So these are all the primitives that have been discovered. Like we had staking with Boryoku Dragons, and then missions and quests that came out with Stoned Ape Crew. So as more on-chain utilities are discovered, we'll continue to add them into that middle section there. Then we have the Asset Hub. This is just our suite of tools to manage all your in-game assets, and everything is like fully interoperable. So like you create an in-game currency, then you can make like a general store, and you have the payment manager to buy like resources. So let's say you buy some iron ore, you can turn that iron ore into an iron sword. Then that iron sword can get directly equipped to the character, so on the character loadout itself. So this is all happening on chain, and it's all the programs are working together, right, to have this unified developer experience with interoperable programs. Then the last one on the far right, these are our auxiliary tools. And we're right now working on this thing called the Guild Kit, which allows us to do all of these modules, but in a co-op manner. So having, co-op gameplay on chain. So everything here is developed except the Guild Kit. And then that's the last module that will be coming soon. That's still in development, but everything else is live on mainnet. But we recommend you use Honeynet, our testnet server, for now. So just to go through Hive control. So I'm not going to go in depth because this is just like a summary presentation, but I just want to hit the key items here. So our Edge kit works with our Edge client, and this acts as like the gateway into Honeycomb Protocol. It streamlines all the compressed transaction creations. It allows you to send low latency transactions and then manages the shadow signer as well. Then we have our player profile. So like all the users' action statistics, preferences are stored directly on chain. And with compression, we're able to have 1 million on-chain player profiles for 4 SOL. So just imagine now, like, a developer being able to deploy a full game using Honeycomb Protocol on Solana, and he can just put like 1 SOL into a wallet and just pay for all of his players' fees, right? For like a year. That's the kind of the power of stake compression. And then we want to, because it's so hard, it's like chewing glass, developing on state compression, we want to just abstract away all of that, right, with our SDK. Then the next one is shadow signer, so just automatically signing transactions. And then our delegate authority. This is just the ability to manage each of the program authorities. So what we can do is actually give you the delegate authority. We can then you can give it to like a developer. Then you can take it back so that there's no vulnerabilities. You can use multi-sigs as well. So this is player profiles, an example of it. So I'm just gonna show you guys real quick. So this is Pooks. They minted out on Magic Eden pretty recently. Let's go into Razorback's profile here. So this is Razorback's profile. It's using our player profiles, and he has his Twitter, Discord connected, as well as you can see all of his collections on here. You can click on one of the NFTs and see all the traits. And then you can even see all the badges he's collecting. This is the OG badge he's got. And if you get the badge if you held a Pook since a specific date, and then it gives you like the total points. And then that all gets added up and ranked on a leaderboard. So I'm not even connected here using my wallet. This is all just accessible without it. So I can just even copy this to a clipboard, then share this in our chat, and then you can check it out on your own PC or mobile device. And then the only time I have to actually connect wallet is if I want to make this profile itself. This is kind of just an example of our player profiles. Nectar utilities. This is the on-chain utilities, quests, and staking. In quests, these are like simple missions, just send and recall. So we have simple and we have advanced missions. In the advanced missions, you have the ability to do different levels or linked missions. So for example, your character goes on some missions, gets some XP, gets past a certain level, then they unlock specific quests and missions, right? And we also have the ability to do linked missions. So you have to complete mission A to get to mission B, then get to mission C, right? Then we're going to have guild missions. So the ability to do quests with a group in a co-op manner. So staking is just in-game idle rewards and yields. This has a bunch of customization. I won't go into it too much here, but it is one of the more maintained programs in Honeycomb. I think it's been before it was even brought into Honeycomb, it was deployed on 50 plus projects, and every project, had a different requirement. So we were able to bring a lot of those customizations directly into Honeycomb. You can have multiple collections with different multipliers, and then those multipliers working together to create even more intricate custom rewards. Then the last one is the loot boxes and raffle. That's still in development, so more to come. But yeah, we're going to have a nice rollout here with that as well. just to have some RNG, winnings within a game. Asset Hub, again, I won't go too far into detail, but just like to touch base really quickly on each one of these. So our resource manager, this is for all of your resources in game. Then we have our character manager. So there's two main types of characters you can have. One is you generate a brand new fresh character. And then the second is you can wrap in an existing character. So what does that mean? Like say I do a mint on Magic Eden or Tensor and I want to bring these PNFTs into Honeycomb. What we do is we wrap it into the protocol and then we issue a compressed NFT so that NFT still stays in a compressed state, right? We want it to be in that compressed manner so that you get the benefits of state compression. So those are the kind of the two types. And then the characters are fully interoperable with all of the other programs. For example, like I can have a resource that gets turned into like from iron ore to the iron sword, then it gets equipped to the character. And maybe it costs like 100 golds, right? So then it's working with the currency manager as well. So in order to equip that item, it costs 100 tokens. That's an SPL token. And then, we have our currency manager. So this uses the token extension, token 2022. And it gives you a bunch of options. For example, you can have like transfer hooks. You can make permission tokens. So let's say your game is in a regulated market. We can have it so that, it has, instead of a permission list, it's a permission token. Then we have a payment manager, and this just is very straightforward, manages all the payments in the game to set up like marketplaces, general stores, whatnot. So this is the Sandstorm Hackathon submission we did back in early 2023. And it's, so what you're seeing here is I have like a shopping cart and I'm collecting all these traits into the cart. And then in one click, I'm going to purchase all of these NFT traits as SFTs. And then in the second click on the publish button, I'm going to take input of all of these traits and export out one NFT. This was a really big deal because this is using lookup tables and we're able to achieve this like extremely complex transaction where it's eating all 8 SFTs and then in one transaction, we're minting out a single NFT on chain. It was only possible on Solana. I think it's like February 2023, which this got us first in the Sandstorm Hackathon in gaming. So this is just, an example of the Asset Hub itself. This is the guild kit. So really quickly, there's like 3 parts to it. In the guild kit, you can have guilds with hierarchy. You can make sub DAOs. You can also share resources when you go on like guild quests or missions, just allowing for co-op gameplay. Then there's guild chat. So we're going to have it Discord integration as well as like some chat moderation for the guild. Then guild quests. So being able to send a bunch of NFTs or send characters or send users aggregated together on missions. And then you could do custom reward distribution. So if you maybe have a 5% chance of completing this quest, maybe because the guild leader wants to reserve an item or wants to change the reward distribution, you can go ahead and do that fully on chain. This will be able to like design a lot of unique social experiments, essentially. This is an example of like the guild kit that is guild kit in action. So on the left there is Soul Patrol. This is just setting up a like sub DAO so that you can have a guild chat for that sub DAO specifically. Then on the right here, this is Ocean Explorers. So this is 10 of the NFTs being brought in together to create a crew, and then that crew can get sent on a mission. And then if you want to learn more about honeycombprotocol.com, you can go to the website, Honeycomb Protocol. Also, like we're here to mentor you all. So like anyone that's looking at, applying to the gaming track or, thinking of building on Honeycomb, please reach out to us. I'm very active on Discord, Telegram, or Twitter. The username is @honeycompressor, so it's the same across all of them. You can also reach out to us via email. You can also open up a Discord ticket, or you can DM us on Twitter as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was cool to see your actual demo from the hackathon. I had a couple of questions that I've already developed. It would be better to open the floor to our incredible hackathon teams and members of the community. There was There were a lot of golden nuggets danced at the start of the presentation that I'd love to dig into.
We got teams that have already submitted. They're working on their project. They've got their mentors. They've got some experience and some resources. From your experience, like, what should be their primary focus over the next 72 hours to a week?
Yeah, I would say don't wait too long to start recording your pitch deck. One of the things is like, having it ready like a week or 10 days before the submission is good because, the first one's not going to be like, 100%, right? You're going to get a lot of feedback. You should send it out to as many people that that can help mentor you, and then compile those and slowly keep iterating on the pitch itself. And then MVP, obviously, like you're going to be pushing that all the way to the deadline, right? So one thing you can do is even record the pitch itself and then record the demo or MVP as you get closer to having that product ready. That's one advantage. That way you can keep iterating on the pitch deck and the pitch itself while, you can save the demo for like right before the submission is due. Like I think last time, like I was recording I think it was like 2 hours before like the submission deadline. But I did not do that for the pitch itself. The pitch itself was we made the presentation 10 days before, and then pitched it to our team, and they were like, no, this is we got to change a lot of things, right? So don't wait last minute to the pitch for the pitch deck.
Yeah, awesome feedback. Fib, did you have any questions?
Yes, I did. I have a few questions, and definitely agree that getting feedback as early as possible is critical. So if you don't already have a mentor, or if there's an area that you need extra support on, please reach out to us and let us know. You can let us know in Solana Canada or in the Hackathon group chat on Telegram or here in Discord. So I love that first slide. Do you mind if we go back to that and open it up again? Number one, of course, it's really important to. Oh, now I'm hearing myself twice. Okay, it's really important to be solving a problem. How do you know when your product is minimally valuable, that it's solving a problem, but you're not overbuilding? Like, when is your product minimally sufficient enough to get and retain early adopters? Like, I think that you hear the word MVP a lot, but determining what an MVP should involve, I think, is a little bit more nuanced and something that we can often miss.
Yeah, so whenever at Toomey Labs, whenever we went through the scoping with a client, we would pretty much list out every for on the front end, we go through every single detail, every item. And then on the back end, what are all the different components? On the Web3 side, what are all the components? And then you go through and you mark each of those must have, could have, don't really need, would be great to have, right? There's a standard template you can find online for this, but it's called Moscow is the process. And so if you just Google Moscow process and you see how how it works, that I think is the best way. And then in the end, you just, you end up with all the must-haves that you really essentially need to be able to solve the problem you're trying to solve, right? I think that's I'll put it in the chat here, Moscow process. Did that answer your question, Fib?
Yeah, I think it did. I think I would add to that and go back to what you said about getting feedback, making sure you take your solution, whatever you're designing, and, checking with users, does this actually solve the problem, or is there some nuance or obstacle that makes your solution not sufficient enough as it is, which I'm sure would be helpful in the Moscow process. Another question I had, what kind of impact do you think the judges are looking for in these hackathons? So is it driving Solana adoption? Is it social impact? What do you think really matters or catches their attention?
I think it should be like, I think it's different for every judge, but I think the general idea is, does it solve a problem, underlying problem that maybe Web 2 can't solve? Or maybe there's something downtrending in Web 2, like a revenue model that's not working out, where Web 3 can be disruptive or solve something, like solve an underlying problem. Just trying to think, like, that's probably the best long-term impact, like from thinking from like a straight business economic standpoint, is if the impact can be disruptive, then there's potential that, you will have a high enough demand, right? Just, I'll give an example for gaming. So we know in Web2 gaming, revenue streams traditionally have been downtrending the last like 5 years. The average gamer now is 36 years old, and you can't monetize the same ways. So what Web3 allows us to do is it opens up all of these new revenue streams. That's kind of how we went through Honeycomb Protocol, and we decided on these are the modules that we want to put on chain. The reason why we chose those modules is simply because they can be disruptive. They open up new revenue streams. Web2 cannot, right? So that's the long-term impact of Honeycomb Protocol towards Web3 gaming, just as an example. I think you kind of have to find that same journey for your product and kind of go through and figure out what the long-term impact can be. But finding some economic disruption, I think, can be really powerful in building your thesis.
Chief, I check out your PowerPoint. Are you guys do any outsourcing or something? Like outsourcing work or something?
So we have some teams out here in Vietnam that we're working with that we want bring on existing Web 2 games into Web 3, create like white label products. Like, we're not ourselves like focused on that business model, but that is a business model that can be created using Honeycomb Protocol, right? You can start up like a game studio and make.
Yeah. And then also about the cost to use your SDK, like is any any extra cost,
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's completely free to use right now. Yeah, we don't have any plans on opening up, any revenue or any fees. We are looking doing a base Solana transaction fee though down the line. So if there is a transaction on Solana and then there's a transaction that goes through Honeycomb, we just double the base gas fee, which is like 5,000 lamp ports. But at the same time, we're very cognizant of the fact that we want everyone in the world to be able to build Web3 games. So any new project will get allocated some sort of grant or fund to cover those fees for some time until it's more towards the MVP or more towards production and goes into more adoption phase.
How do you balance the presentation in terms of being able to show off the value of the product you're creating and the problem you're solving versus how much time or space you allocate to the economics and business side of the submission?
Yeah, it's interesting because it wasn't always when you do the hackathon, it wasn't always you get fed right into the accelerator. So now it's almost, you have to think about that, the economics as well in the project, because at the end you are going to get some sort of valuation, right? Whatever the Colosseum standard is for that acceleration program. It's more important, I think, now more than ever. Before it was, I feel more not directly applicable to the hackathon. So it's hard to say how much you should focus on it. But if the problem you're solving has a significant enough demand, I think you should be able to relatively easily figure out the economics. Again, your demand should be really simple. How does it disrupt an existing industry or solve a problem where you can't live without it? I should feel emotional when I listen to your pitch to the point where Web3 is going to fail, Solana is going to fail without this project being live, right? We have to do whatever we can to get this project off the ground and help this founder out, right?
Thank you. Stormzy, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? I had one last question, which is, how do you do customer research?
Yeah, I think customer research is really, really important, and not a lot of people are doing it. For us, it was we worked with 100+ projects on Solana, so it was we had that advantage, right? We knew from inside out kind of where what the demand is going to look like based on previous experience. So I think you just have to go through your own journey. Sometimes it means, doing freelance work, right? What's wrong with that? Nothing, right? You can just kind of check out the market, see what, other people are interested in building, see how it works out, and then you slowly learn and you get better, right? It's like going to the gym. The first time you go to the gym, it's going to be rough, but by the 100th time or 1,000th time you go to the gym, it becomes a lot easier. And then as far as adding new features to your product, like for us, it's pretty straightforward. And I think, it's probably different for every project, but just as a baseline, that's how our thought process goes through within our company.
So I'm doing well, Fibonacci, and appreciate you asking. And hope you're doing well, Simon and Chief as well. We are actually building on the consumer commerce space, Chief. And my question was this: in terms of showing the product demo, do you think we should push this towards the end of the presentation, or do you think it would be good if we included in the problem and the solution side of things somewhere in the starting of the presentation?
If you can do it in one take, then you could include it somewhere in the beginning or middle, because it can be like kind of the opener, right? For me, it was always easier just to have like two separate presentations. So like I record the pitch maybe like 15 days before the submission is due, because it's just PowerPoints, right? So you can start working on that. But having the actual MVP, like that was always like up to the last like hour almost of the hackathon being due. Like it was always cutting it so close. And every hackathon we've done, it's always the same story, right? Out of the 30 days, it's like we're down to the last 30 minutes. So I like to split it up. If you can have the MVP ready and polished out and working, and you can record on top of it, in advance, then you can include it early. But if you are pushing to the last hours, then sometimes just keeping it separate and then doing the pitch, then doing the demo, and then you can just add it in and hit submit, right?
Okay. Understood. We've got some initial customer feedback. So do you think it'd be helpful if we include those customer feedbacks in the solution side of things? And by the way, the feedback has been good. So
yeah, I mean, only include the good feedback, right? As far as including it in your pitch, do you have metrics and traction? Like, is that what, or is it more like you showed it to a few people and you have some feedback?
We do have a couple of hundred users and a few merchants, and they've been using our platform in beta, giving feedback, and then we are iterating the
then just have a slide on all the traction, all the metrics you have, and then also like a short summary of each of the little feedbacks that they've given. I think that would be amazing.
Okay. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Turk is coming up to ask a question.
First of all, thank you for letting me ask a question, and thank you for this event, Fibonacci, Chief, Simon. My question is less about the demo and more about the feedback. So essentially, we have a demo ready specifically for token creation. And as you know, in Solana, this already exists. But we want to stress the fact that this is the best alternative. Other than kind of talking about these key points, how else can we approach in terms of advertising this alternative that was created and how it is superior compared to the existing ones?
Yeah, in that case, I would just have like a slide that goes over like your competitive advantage. Like you can have like a grid structure where it's like we meet all of these criteria versus our competitors. That's been something I've seen.
Thank you so much for the answer. And I had one more question regarding user feedback. How important do you think some user feedback rounds before the hackathon ends for our final presentation would we have to deploy and try to get some feedback from random people on our demo?
Yeah, I mean, like always getting feedback is better. It's always been so tight for us. Like we are always like building it to the last minute. So we didn't it's like just barely able to make it work so that we can record it in one shot so that it, can make it through the video itself. But if you have the time to get user feedback, always do that, right? Like that's the best, best thing you can do. It's like your pitch, the sooner you can send it out to get feedback, the better it's going to be. If you have the luxury to do it, I would highly recommend it.
Thank you for all the answers, and thank you to Fibonacci and Simon once again, and thank you, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thanks for having me.